Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on Loop. Some of you may have discovered Loop already, but if not, don't worry, I'm going to start from scratch. We've got 30 minutes and I'm going to be talking about Loop components. Right, Loop components, atomic units of productivity. What I'm going to cover today are the following questions. What is a loop component? Why are they so good for collaboration? Where and how do I create them, use them and share them? Where are the content? Where is the content of a loop component stored? And what is it stored as? What type of content can a loop component have? How do I know who's editing a loop component or who has edited it and authored it, who's changed it? And finally, what is the Loop app, the workspace and the Loop page that you might have heard of? So let's start off with, what is a Loop component? Right, it's a discrete piece or pieces of content. At the moment, we can use Loop components in Teams, Outlook and Whiteboard, Teams chat and Teams channel conversations. A Loop component is created and stored in one location, but it can be accessed from lots of different apps. It can be copied between a Teams chat, a channel, Outlook email, and even a whiteboard. The owner of a Loop component can determine who uses it, they can view it or edit it, and when the contents of a Loop component is edited, then everywhere that the Loop component has been exposed shows the updated content as and when it changes. Okay, a lot of information there, but hang on a minute. What makes it so different to, say, a Word file? Discrete pieces of information that can be shared. Okay, Word can do that. A Loop component is created and stored in one location. Shared in lots, yeah, a Word can do that. Can be copied. So can a Word document. But hang on a minute, it's not just the document, it's the actual contents that can appear where it's copied. Oh, well, no, Word can't do that. Can determine who accesses it? Well, yeah, you can do that for a Word document. But any changes are exposed real time. When it updates in one place, a Loop component updates in all the places it's been shared. Oh, right, well, no, Word can't do that. So Loop components are different. It takes a different mindset to think about using them. It's the exposure of a single source of content that dynamically updates wherever the Loop component has been exposed or copied to. Loop components are very good when you're starting collaboration, gathering ideas, gathering views, starting small and growing big. Example scenarios of where Loop components are useful. Crowdsourcing a meeting agenda. Gathering feedback and scores after an interview. Recording actions of meetings and tracking their progress. There's just a smattering of a few examples. There are hundreds, maybe thousands more that will emerge as you start to use Loop components. So where can I create and use a Loop component? Well, I've mentioned in an Outlook email, a Teams chat. Now you can also use Loop components in Teams channels. You can also put them onto a whiteboard. What is coming is the use of Loop components in Word on the web. It's available now, but hasn't landed in our tenant, hasn't landed in Hallam. The really useful one that's coming is Teams meetings notes. So useful when that arrives. It's even going to be available to be Loop components to be put into OneNote. Okay, so let's have a look at some loop components. Let me arrange my screen. This is what I had difficulty with before because I was working off a different screen. Okay, so here I am in Teams one-to-one chat with Nicola. Right then, I am going to start. Was a case that you could only put a loop component into a message if there was nothing else there, but that has changed. You can now type and then add a loop component when you like. So let's start a loop component here. And we'll have it as a checklist. There we go. And I'm going to put just some text in here. We've got a meeting coming up. We want to pull some ideas. So some ideas that need to be asked. Okay, there we go. Availability in June. So there we go. Now there's my loop component. You see that I chose from the menu that came up to put a checklist in. I can add new items to this checklist. And you see that it is being shared with specific people. In this case, it is Nicola because I'm putting it into this chat message, and I will post that. And there it appears. Okay, so it's got the name up there. I can see Nicola's actually seeing that right now. She's actually in that loop component. These buttons here show me where it's being shared. At the moment, it's just being used between me and Nicola. I can copy that loop component and I can see who's got access. And at the moment, it's me and Nicola. And there's Nicola typing away with the green cursor there. Now I'm going to broaden this out. I'm going to copy this loop component by that button there, and I'm going to stick it into a group chat. So our group chat here with my team, and I'm just going to position my cursor in a new message and put it in. It recognizes it as a loop component. It's saying, right, I can display that. Now, it was just a loop component between me and Nicola. Now it's saying, oh, hang on a minute. There's some people in this chat, because I've broadened it out to my team, that can't access this because at the moment it's just linked between me and Nicola. Okay, I'll give other people access. Okay. Now I can see that this loop component is not only here, but it's been shared in a one-to-one chat. So this button here shows me where the loop component has been shared to. Okay. Now I'm going to broaden it out even further. I'm going to post that. There it goes in. Right. Now I'm going to broaden it out even further. I've had it in a one-to-one chat, now a group chat. I'm going to copy that loop component, go into Teams and into a channel. I've got my channel messages going from top down. I'm going to post a new post and just put in the loop component, paste the loop component in. Okay, it's saying some people in this channel don't have access. That's okay, give them access. And at any time, if I want to change the access, this arrow here, where it's actually telling me about the permissions on this loop component, I can change that. I can say, no, it's open to everybody in the organization and not have to worry about setting the permissions. They're going to be accessible but anywhere that it's copied to, and people in Hallam can access it. Okay, so that's how I can change at will who can access it. And this button is showing me where it's been shared already in a group chat and in a one-to-one chat. There we go. And we've got it being edited as we speak. Now, I'm going to open it even more now and send it to a specific person in the form of an email. So I'm going to bring up my email and start a new email. And I will send this to Dave Thornley, and I will paste in that loop component. And it will appear. I have confidence it will appear. And while it's appearing, I'm going to just open up on my screen all the different places. My one-to-one chat with Nicola. So let me go into my one-to-one chat with Nicola there. And I will open that up into its new window, a window of its own. I've got the group chat. I'll open that up in its own window. I'm asking my machine to do an awful lot here. Just putting it on another screen. And I'm going to go into my Teams, and I've got the group chat in here. This is my group chat in here. Okay, and I was in the middle of, I can even post it. I always forget to post it. Okay, so there is my, the same loop component, pooling ideas of questions to put to somebody in a meeting. That is in a channel. This is in a group chat. This is in my one-to-one chat with Nicola, and this is in my email to Dave Thornley. It seems to wander around the screen on its own. There we go. Just stop there for a minute. Now, you can see, well, I hope you can see. Okay. Might be a little bit tricky, but you can see, there you go. We've got it being updated. And if I just come down to this one, yeah, that's the key of loop components. Exposed in different places, synchronizing its updates. I'm not going to go even one step further and put it in a whiteboard. I hope you've got the idea. Okay, so where are these being stored? I've copied them to lots of places. There is only one source. So let me just go back to my presentation and I'll show you the slide that I have prepared for that. Depending on where you start and creating the loop component, first of all, if it's in a Teams chat, it gets stored on, in my case, my OneDrive. If it's in an Outlook email, it gets stored to my OneDrive. If I've created it on Whiteboard, my OneDrive. Key place, my OneDrive. You've got different places, documents, so Microsoft Teams chat files, documents, attachments, documents, whiteboard components. These are existing folders on your OneDrive. If it's created initially in a channel, it gets stored on SharePoint in the folder associated with that channel. Let's go and have a look at that. Okay, so I'll just move that out and I'll bring up my browser. And here I am in Microsoft 365 homepage. If I go to, let me go into OneDrive and I will show you those folders. There they are, and I've actually marked them in red. So we have a Microsoft Teams chat files, a whiteboards folder, and an attachments folder. If I go into where did I create them, I created the chat, the loop component that I chatted with Nicola first of all. So I should find the loop file in there. If I click on there, there is the loop file. Okay, it's just like any other file in respect to it being stored on OneDrive. Okay, a little tip as we're going through, you can favorite. I'm going to favorite that so it's easy for me to find that in future. Just very quickly in passing, I'm not going to go through this in detail, but I've got a version history, so I can change it back to previous versions. There's two ways of, in other words, winding back a loop component that's being edited with other people. Okay, so that's where the loop component that I created this morning is. Now, if I click on that loop component, it opens it in its own page in the browser. There we go. And it's got that form of content. I put a checklist in, but I don't have to just limit it to just a checklist. I can add some more content of a different type. The slash gives me a whole list of different types of content. So maybe I wanted to do a call out. Both sets of content, the checklist and the call out, is part of the same loop component. So what types of content can I have in a loop component? I have pre-prepared a loop component, and I'll just show you. I've got it open, but I wanted to go back to my 365 homepage and go into my favorites. Yeah, there's the one I've just favorited, but this is the one that I've pre-prepared. And again, I favorited it, so it's really easy to find. And if I open that up, it opens in its own page, just as it has done for the one I created this morning. Here, I'm showing you the different types of content. Paragraph, a table, got little handles. I can move columns around. The handle for the block of content I can use to delete. Here's my table. I can sort, I can filter, I can widen, I can hide columns. There's lots of functionality that goes into different types of content. Here's an image that I've added. Bulleted list, numbered list, checklist. This is a divider. Again, to show you how just a forward slash, and I get a menu of many different types of content I can put into a loop component. Far more than you see just in Teams or in an email in Outlook. So this is the rich, full list of different types. Going down, there is a quote type, puts a vertical black bar there. These are labels. Let me show you labels. Okay, there's pre-designed one, and you can also add your own type of labels. You can define your own. Names, you can name people. Right, this is the difference. Nicola's got access to this loop component. Pete hasn't. How did I add? Anybody /P, and it context sensitive. It knows I'm typing P. It could be progress tracker or person. PE, it gives me person. When I put person in, it says, right, who am I looking for? If I put Dave Thornley in there, for example, yeah. Now, what's the difference between Nicola's name? Come off that so you can see. Okay. What's the difference between Nicola's name and Pete and Dave Thornley? Well, at the moment, Pete and Dave Thornley haven't got access to this loop component. I'm just using their name. But if I click on the cross, I'm giving them access to this loop component and they will receive an email message. This is a call out. This is a comment with my identity at the start of it. This is a date. This is a type I guess not many people will use generally, but it's for putting code in, and it will handle different types of code. These are the more important ones. Task list. A task list is using the name, a person type, and a date. Voting table is, again, it's a type of table. And here I'm using a voting type of content. I can move columns, I can delete columns, I can rename columns, I can sort, I can filter, and I can even export the output to, if I click on it, to Excel. Where was I? I was in here, right click, and I will show you that over here because I think I've messed that one up. But if I right click there we go, export to Excel. The progress tracker, these are all covered on the page I've prepared on the Digital Skills Hub, so I'm not going to go into as much detail as I thought. I'm running out of time. Progress tracker is a different type of table. Kanban board, very similar to how you'd use Planner. Team retrospective, just a different type of table that Microsoft thought we'll create a content type like this. So many different types of content. Once you've opened up a loop component as a page in your browser, then the / is a really good way of remembering or being shown all the different types of content that you can put in. Please ignore Trello and Jira. That isn't available to us. Okay, so got a loop component here. I've got lots and lots and lots of content in there. And I got my team we collectively wrote a limerick. So who wrote which line? Well, you've seen how we can see people that are updating real time because their cursor is shown and often their avatar and their initials are shown and you can see them editing. But if you've got content that, well, who wrote that? Click on it and hover. I wrote that line. Who wrote this line? If I zoom in as well, it'll be a bit easier to see. Who wrote this line? I click on it and wait and hover. Oh, Mark wrote that line. Who wrote this line? Josh. Who wrote this line? Hover. Jake did. And then I wrote this line. You've got the idea that you can even see who has put content into your loop component. Okay, finally, back to the presentation, because I want to mention Loop App, Loop Workspace, and Loop Page. We in Hallam at the moment do not have access to the Loop app. We will do. Microsoft, in their wisdom, and I can't explain why, have not released the Loop app for full use to education licenses, but it will come this year. A Loop app, as signified by this large rectangle, can contain loop workspaces. A loop workspace contains loop pages, and loop pages contain content and loop components. And a loop component can contain a single type of content or multiple types of content. Here we've got paragraph, table, and a bulleted list. You see how they all build up. When the Loop app with workspaces and loop pages become available to us, then we really start to have to change our mindset about actually using Loop and how it compares to using sort of Word files, for example, because we've got such a bigger realm when we've got Loop components that can fit into pages, and pages can fit into workspaces, and all of this can be shared with our colleagues. A Loop component, a page, pages, a workspace, multiple workspaces. Each can be shared. Okay. 30 minutes has gone by pretty quick. I've given you a very short introduction to Loop components. What I have done is on our Digital Skills Hub, I've created a detailed page about Loop components, and I've also put here some other links, and Nicola's going to put those into the chat right now. Please keep aware that as yet we can't use Loop app, workspaces, pages. We don't have access to Loop in meeting notes. When they come, it's going to be amazing. Really excited about that. We can't use a Loop in Word yet or in OneNote. Let me show you the Loop page I've created on the Digital Skills Hub. Here it is, the final thing I'm going to say this morning. It's got a lot of content, a lot of bits I've covered today, but I haven't covered. Can I restore a Loop component to previous versions? Yes, you can. This is how the page shows you. What about notifications? When do I get notifications from Loop? This bit shows you that. Hints and tips and tricks on how to make Loop components more findable once you've created them in Teams and even in OneDrive. What happens if an owner of a Loop component that I'm relying on leaves? Have a read of this section. Can I move a Loop component from my OneDrive to SharePoint? Find out what happens by reading this section. And can I embed a Loop component on a SharePoint page? You can. Doesn't mean that you should. Okay, I will stop the webinar there. We've got 2 minutes over, but I was faffing about at the beginning. I hope it's giving you a good introduction as to what Loop components are and giving you some invites to really go and have a look at that very detailed page that we've put together about Loop components. And do come back to us in the Digital Skills team if you have any queries or questions about Loop components. If you'd just like to rate the webinar today using the poll that's appeared on your screen. Thank you very much for attending. I know it's been a whistle-stop tour, but I hope it's been of use to you. Thank you very much.